My mother-in-law ruined Christmas for my family. While I wasn't there, she invited a man dressed as the Grinch and told my daughter he was there to take her away forever. My little girl screamed and cried for her mom in pure terror until she completely lost her voice. My mother-in-law laughed and said it was just a Christmas prank. I made sure it never happened again. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now let's dive into today's story. Kendra Holt's fingers ached as she pressed them against her temples, the fluorescent lights of the hospital break room drilling into her skull. 23 hours. That's how long she'd been at County General, moving between patients with practiced efficiency even as exhaustion settled into her bones like wet concrete. The December cold had brought an influx of respiratory cases, and Christmas Eve meant half the staff had called out. She understood. Families mattered, traditions mattered, but understanding didn't make the double shift any easier. Her phone buzzed against the scratched Formica table. Wade's name lit up the screen. "Hey," she said, tucking the phone between her shoulder and ear while she dug through her bag for ibuprofen. "You still stuck there?" Wade's voice carried that edge of frustration he got when things didn't go according to plan. "They need me until 7. Maybe later if the ER gets slammed again." Kendra found the pill bottle, shook 2 tablets into her palm. "How's Macy?" "She's fine. Ate her dinner. Did her reading." A pause. "Mom wants to take her to see the Christmas lights downtown." Kendra's hand froze halfway to her mouth, the pills resting in her palm. "Your mom's there." "She showed up an hour ago. Brought cookies." Of course she did. Dolores Holt never called ahead, never asked permission. She simply appeared, inhabiting spaces like she owned them, carrying casserole dishes and unsolicited opinions in equal measure. "Wait, we talked about this." Kendra kept her voice level, professional, the same tone she used with difficult patients. "I don't feel comfortable leaving Macy alone with her." "Jesus, Kendra. She's my mother, not a criminal." The pills went down dry, leaving a bitter chalk taste on her tongue. "I didn't say she was a criminal. I said I'm not comfortable." "Because of what? That time she let Macy stay up late? The time she gave her ice cream before dinner?" Wade's voice rose slightly. "You act like she's dangerous." Kendra closed her eyes, seeing behind her lids the careful cataloging of small incidents. Dolores telling 7-year-old Macy the crying was for babies. Dolores hiding Macy's favorite stuffed rabbit to toughen her up. Dolores laughing when Macy had a nightmare after watching a movie that was too old for her, a movie Dolores had insisted was fine. None of it was prosecutable. All of it was wrong. "She doesn't respect boundaries," Kendra said finally. "And Macy's been anxious lately." "She's anxious because you coddle her." The words landed like a slap. Kendra opened her eyes, stared at the institutional beige wall across from her. Someone had tacked up a construction paper snowman, the kind kids make in elementary school. It was crooked, cheerful, utterly out of place. "I protect her," Kendra said quietly. "There's a difference. Mom won't do anything. She loves Macy." Love. The word sat heavy in Kendra's chest. She thought about all the ways people justified harm with that word, dressed up cruelty in its clothing and called it care. "Wade. Look, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Mom just wants to spend time with her granddaughter on Christmas Eve." His tone shifted, softening into something meant to be reassuring. "No pranks. No scares. I promise." Kendra bit the inside of her cheek, tasted copper. Through the break room's small window, she could see snow starting to fall. Tiny flakes that wouldn't stick, but would make the roads treacherous for the drive home. Another 3 hours minimum. Possibly 5 or 6. Macy would be asleep by the time she got back. Would spend Christmas morning waiting for her mother to wake up from exhaustion. "Put Macy on," Kendra said. Rustling sounds, Then her daughter's voice, small and careful. Mama. Hey, baby. How are you doing? Okay. That specific flatness in Macy's tone that meant she wasn't okay but didn't want to say so. Didn't want to be a problem. Kendra's throat tightened. Grandma's there, huh? Yeah. Are you comfortable with her staying? Silence stretched out. Kendra could picture Macy's face, the way her daughter's gray eyes would dart toward Wade, calculating what answer was safe. I guess, Macy whispered. You guess, or you're sure? I'm sure. But the words came too fast, too practiced. Kendra pressed her forehead against her free hand. Emergency medicine had taught her triage, how to assess quickly, decide what could wait and what couldn't, who would survive and who wouldn't. But this wasn't a trauma bay. This was her child, and every instinct she had screamed wrong, wrong, wrong. But she was so tired. And Wade was right, he'd be there. He wouldn't let anything happen. Okay, Kendra heard herself say. You be good. I'll be home as soon as I can. Okay, Mama. I love you, Macy. Love you too. Wade came back on the line. See? She's fine. Stop worrying. Kendra ended the call without responding. She sat in the break room for another 2 minutes, staring at that crooked snowman, before forcing herself back onto the floor. Her shift supervisor, Rita, caught her at the nurse's station. You look like hell. Merry Christmas to you too. I'm serious, Kendra. When's the last time you ate? Kendra couldn't remember. I'm fine. Rita raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. They'd worked together for 6 years, had seen each other through divorces and deaths and endless 12-hour shifts that bled into 14, 16, 20. Rita understood the kind of tired that went past physical and lodged somewhere in your soul. Room 7 needs vitals, Rita said instead. Room 11's ready for discharge paperwork. And try to eat something before you pass out on my floor. The next 3 hours passed in the usual blur of medical routine. Checking 4 lines, administering medication, explaining discharge instructions to families who barely listened. At some point someone put on a Christmas radio station. Tinny carols floating through the ward. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Kendra thought about Macy, thought about Dolores, thought about Wade's promise, and told herself everything would be fine. Dolores Holt had raised her son with a firm hand and a firmer philosophy. The world was hard, children needed to learn that early, and coddling only produced weak adults who couldn't handle reality. She'd never understood Kendra's approach. All that gentle parenting nonsense, that constant worry about feelings and comfort. Macy was 7 years old, for God's sake. Old enough to learn some toughness. The Christmas lights idea had been genuine. But as they drove through town, Dolores noticed something in the window of a costume shop. Still open late for last-minute shoppers. A Grinch costume. Full body, professionally done, with the yellowed teeth and cruel eyes. An idea sparked. Wade, she said, pulling into the parking lot. Remember when you were little and your uncle dressed up as Krampus? Wade glanced at her from the passenger seat, Macy dozing in the back. Mom. You turned out fine. Better than fine. You learned not to be scared of stupid things. Kendra said no pranks. Kendra coddles that girl. Dolores put the car in park, turned to face her son fully. Do you want Macy growing up afraid of her own shadow? Unable to handle anything difficult? It's not the same. It's exactly the same. A little fear builds character. Teaches kids that monsters aren't real and they can handle scary situations. Dolores softened her voice, the way she used to when Wade was young and uncertain. You trust me, don't you? I raised you, and you're a good man. Wade looked back at Macy, sleeping peacefully against the car seat. Just the costume? Nothing too intense. Nothing too intense, Dolores lied. The man's name was Terry Bullock, and he needed money. Christmas was expensive, his truck payment was late, and $200 cash for wearing a costume seemed easy enough. Dolores met him in the parking lot, pulled him aside while Wade took Macy into the drugstore for hot chocolate. "You know the Grinch, right?" Dolores asked. "Sure. She's been naughty." Dolores pulled out her wallet, counted out bills. Really naughty. Lying to her parents, sneaking sweets, not doing her homework. "I need you to scare her straight." Terry hesitated. "How scared we talking?" "Just enough to make an impression. Tell her you're here to take her to Whoville for being bad. Chase her a little if you have to. Nothing physical, just committed to the character." Terry looked at the money, looked at Dolores. 200. 200. And the parents are okay with this? "It was my son's idea," Dolores said smoothly, teaching her consequences. That made it easier. If the parents approved, if this was some kind of lesson. "All right," Terry said, taking the money. "When?" "Tonight, around 8. I'll text you the address." Kendra left the hospital at 7:40. Snow was falling steadier now, accumulating on the roads despite the earlier prediction. Her windshield wipers beat a rhythmic pattern as she drove, counting down miles until home. Her house appeared through the white-gray evening, lights warm in the windows. Wade's truck sat in the driveway next to Dolores's sedan. Still there. Good. Kendra parked, grabbed her bag, felt her spine crack as she straightened. Every joint protested. She needed a shower, needed food, needed sleep, but first she needed to see Macy. The front door was unlocked. Kendra stepped inside, shook snow from her jacket. "Macy? Wade." Silence. That particular quality of silence that made the hair on her arms rise. Then a scream. Not just fear. Terror. The sound a prey animal makes when the predator strikes. Kendra dropped her bag, moved on instinct, running toward her daughter's room. The hallway seemed longer than it should be. Macy's door stood open. From inside came another scream, raw and desperate, the sound of a child whose world had just become unsafe. Kendra hit the doorway and saw a man in a Grinch costume, hulking and grotesque, advancing toward Macy. Her daughter backed into the corner, arms raised defensively, mouth open in that continuous scream. Wade stood by the window, frozen. Dolores stood near the dresser, laughing. Actually laughing, hand over her mouth, like this was delightful, like this was funny. "Get away from her." Kendra's voice came out in a roar she didn't recognize. The man in the costume turned, startled. "I was just. Get the fuck out of my house." He left, scrambling for the hallway. Costume feet, slipping on hardwood. Kendra didn't watch him go. She moved to Macy, dropped to her knees, tried to gather her daughter into her arms. Macy couldn't stop screaming. Her whole body shook, chest heaving, eyes wide and unseeing. The screams went on, scraping through her throat like broken glass. "Baby, it's okay, it's Mama, you're safe." But Macy couldn't hear her, couldn't hear anything past the terror flooding her system. Behind them, Dolores's laughter faded into something defensive. "Oh, come on. It was just a joke. She needs to learn." Kendra looked up at her mother-in-law. Later, she wouldn't remember exactly what her face must have shown, but it made Dolores step backward. "Out," Kendra said. The word came quiet, precise. "Now. Don't be dramatic." "Out." Wade finally moved, finally seemed to wake from whatever paralysis had gripped him. "Mom, maybe you should go." "This is ridiculous. I was trying to help." "Wade, get your mother out of this house before I call the police." Something in Kendra's tone must have penetrated. Wade took Dolores's arm, guided her toward the door. Dolores protested the whole way, voice fading down the hall, finally cutting off with the slam of the front door. Kendra turned back to Macy. Her daughter had stopped screaming, but only because her voice had given out. Now she made awful rasping sounds, trying to pull in air past the panic, small body convulsing with the effort. "Macy! Macy, baby, look at me. Look at Mama." Gray eyes found hers, wild with fear. You're safe. Nobody's going to hurt you. I'm here. Macy's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Nothing came out. She was trying to speak. Trying to say mama, or help, or some other desperate word, but her voice was gone, used up in those terrible screams. Kendra pulled her daughter close, felt the frantic jackrabbit beat of her heart, and knew with absolute certainty that something fundamental had just broken. The emergency room doctor was kind, mid-50s with tired eyes that had seen everything. She examined Macy gently while Kendra stood nearby, arms crossed tight against her body to keep from falling apart. Wade had driven them. He sat in the waiting room, not allowed back. Kendra had made that clear. Severe vocal cord strain, the doctor said finally, pulling her stethoscope away. The screaming caused significant trauma to the vocal folds. But there's something else. She turned to Kendra. You said this was from a fear response. Someone dressed as a monster scared her deliberately. Kendra's voice came flat, clinical. My mother-in-law hired him. The doctor's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. How long did the incident last? I don't know. 5 minutes? Maybe 10 before I got there. And she couldn't stop screaming? No. The doctor made notes on her tablet. I'm going to recommend you follow up with a pediatric psychiatrist. What I'm seeing, the vocal strain is real, but the inability to speak at all right now, that's not just physical. What do you mean? Panic responses can be complex. Sometimes when a child experiences severe trauma, their brain essentially shuts down certain functions as a protective mechanism. It's called conversion disorder. She looked at Kendra directly. The voice loss might persist beyond the physical healing. The words took a moment to land. You're saying this could be permanent? I'm saying it could take significant therapeutic intervention to reverse. If it reverses. The doctor's voice softened. I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. Kendra looked at Macy, curled on the examination table with a blanket pulled around her shoulders. Her daughter's eyes tracked the conversation, but her mouth stayed closed, not even trying to speak anymore. What do we do? Kendra heard herself ask. Speech therapy, psychiatric care, and... The doctor hesitated. I'd recommend limiting contact with whoever did this. The brain needs to relearn that it's safe before it will allow normal function to resume. Limiting contact won't be a problem, Kendra said. They discharged Macy with instructions for follow-up appointments and a prescription for anxiety medication. Kendra carried her daughter to the car, unwilling to put her down, needing the physical confirmation that Macy was real and safe and alive, even if not whole. Wade looked up when they emerged. What did they say? Not here. They drove home in silence. Macy fell asleep against Kendra's shoulder in the back seat, exhausted from panic and medical procedures. The snow had stopped, but the roads remained treacherous, black ice hiding under fresh powder. Wade kept glancing in the rearview mirror. Kendra, don't. I didn't know she was going to. Don't. He flinched but stayed quiet. At home, Kendra carried Macy inside, settled her into bed with extra blankets and her favorite stuffed rabbit. Macy's eyes opened briefly, met her mother's, filled with tears she couldn't voice. I'm here, Kendra whispered. I'm not going anywhere. You're safe now. Macy's small hand gripped hers with desperate strength. Kendra waited until her daughter's breathing evened into sleep before she went back downstairs. Wade sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands. The doctor said it might be permanent, Kendra said. His head shot up. What? The voice loss. It's not just the screaming. It's psychological. Her brain shut down speech to protect itself. Kendra leaned against the counter, too tired to sit, too angry to stand still. They called it conversion disorder. But she'll get better, right? With therapy, or whatever. Maybe. If we're lucky. Wade's face crumpled. Jesus. I didn't think. No. You didn't. Kendra's voice stayed level, controlled. If she started yelling, she might not stop. I told you no pranks. I told you I wasn't comfortable leaving Macy with your mother. And you promised me nothing would happen. I know. I fucked up. I'm sorry. Your sorry doesn't give Macy her voice back. Silence stretched between them. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, a car passed, headlights briefly illuminating the window. What do you want me to do? Wade asked finally. Kendra looked at him. Really looked. Saw the man she'd married 8 years ago, the one who'd been kind and funny and good with kids. Saw how that man had slowly been replaced by this one, who valued his mother's approval over his daughter's safety, who called protection coddling and boundaries drama. I want you to tell me something honestly, she said. When you saw that man terrifying our daughter and your mother laughing about it, what did you feel? Wade opened his mouth, closed it. I don't know. Shocked, I guess. Confused. Not angry. Yeah, I was upset, but what? Mom thought she was helping. She used to do stuff like that with me when I was a kid, and I turned out fine. There it was, the core of everything wrong between them, laid bare in one sentence. You didn't turn out fine, Wade. Kendra said it gently, without cruelty, just stating fact. You turned out like her. That's not fair. Your 7-year-old daughter was terrorized in her own home by someone your mother hired, and you froze. You didn't protect her. You didn't even try. I didn't know it would get that bad. That's the problem. You should have known. Any decent parent would have known. Kendra pushed off from the counter, suddenly too exhausted to keep standing. I'm sleeping in Macy's room tonight. Don't come in. She left him there, climbed the stairs on legs that felt full of sand. In Macy's room, she pulled a chair next to the bed, sat down, took her daughter's small hand in hers, and began documenting. She typed everything into her phone, times, names, exact words Dolores had used in previous incidents, Wade's reaction tonight, the doctor's diagnosis and prognosis. She typed until her thumbs cramped, creating a record because some part of her nurse's brain knew she would need evidence. For what? She wasn't entirely sure yet, but she would need it. Christmas morning arrived gray and cold. Kendra woke stiff from the chair, her neck screaming protest. Macy still slept, breathing steady, face peaceful in unconsciousness. Downstairs, she could hear Wade moving around. Smell coffee brewing. She needed to pee, needed caffeine, needed a shower, but first she needed to check Macy's throat, look for any sign of healing. Macy's eyes opened, found her mother, immediately filled with tears. Hey, Kendra said softly. How are you feeling? Macy's mouth opened. Nothing came out except a small exhale of air. She tried again, visibly straining. Still nothing. Panic flashed across her face. She grabbed Kendra's arm, fingers digging in, silent mouth forming words that wouldn't sound. It's okay, Kendra said, even though it wasn't, even though everything was broken. The doctor said this might happen. We're going to work on it, okay? We'll get you help. Macy shook her head violently, kept trying to speak, getting more distressed with each failed attempt. Baby, stop. You're going to hurt yourself more. Kendra pulled out her phone, opened the Notes app, handed it to Macy. Here, type what you want to say. Small fingers fumbled with the keyboard. Finally, it won't come back. We don't know that. I'm scared. I know. Me too. Kendra pulled her close, felt her daughter's tears soak into her shirt. But we're going to figure this out. I promise. They stayed like that for a long time, rocking slightly, while downstairs Wade pretended it was just another Christmas morning. The days after Christmas blurred together. Kendra took emergency leave from the hospital, used up all her saved vacation time. Macy needed her more than the patients did. Speech therapy appointments 3 times a week. Psychiatric evaluations. Physical therapy for the vocal cords. A neurologist to rule out organic causes. Every specialist said the same thing in different words. The body was capable of speech, but the mind had disconnected that capability. With treatment, improvement was possible, but not guaranteed. Wade went back to work after 3 days, unable or unwilling to take time off. Kendra didn't argue. His absence made everything easier. Dolores called constantly. Wade answered, took the phone into another room, came back defensive. She feels terrible, he said after one such call. Kendra looked up from helping Macy with her homework. Her daughter had learned to write answers instead of speaking them, adapted with the easy flexibility of childhood. She feels terrible. Yeah. She hired a stranger to terrorize a 7-year-old and now feels terrible about the consequences. She didn't mean for it to go this far. What did she mean, Wade? She thought, I don't know, that Macy would be scared for a minute and then laugh about it. Like a prank. A minute. Kendra set down her pen very carefully. She thought our daughter would be terrified for a minute and then laugh. At Christmas, in her own home, by a grown man she didn't know. When you put it like that, how else would I put it? Wade had no answer. He left the room. Kendra went back to helping Macy with math problems, but her mind churned. That night, after Macy went to bed, Kendra opened her laptop and started searching. Grandparent rights in Arkansas. Legal consequences for child endangerment. Conversion disorder prognosis. The research kept her up until 3 a.m. 2 weeks after the incident, Dolores showed up unannounced. Kendra answered the door to find her mother-in-law standing on the porch, holding a grocery bag. I brought soup, Dolores said, as if that explained everything. For Macy. Macy's not hungry. Can I come in? It's cold out here. No. Dolores's expression shifted, the practiced look of wounded maternal feelings. Kendra, please. I want to apologize. Then apologize. Here? On the porch. You're not coming inside, and you're not seeing Macy. Something harder flashed in Dolores's eyes. She's my granddaughter. She's my daughter, and you traumatized her. It was an accident. You hired someone. You gave him instructions. You laughed while she screamed. Kendra's voice stayed level, emotionless. Facts were facts. None of that was an accident. I was trying to teach her. What? That the people who should protect her will hurt her instead? That her own home isn't safe? That adults can't be trusted? Kendra shook her head. Congratulations. Lesson learned. Dolores stepped closer to the door, not threatening exactly, but invasive, the way she always pushed into spaces she wasn't welcome. You're turning Wade against me. I'm protecting my daughter. If that puts me against you, that's your problem. She needs to toughen up. The world is hard. She's 7. Old enough to learn. Old enough to be permanently damaged, apparently. Dolores's jaw tightened. This is your fault. All that coddling, all that gentle parenting bullshit. You made her weak. And there it was. The thing Dolores had been thinking all along, finally said out loud. Get off my porch, Kendra said quietly. I have a right to see my granddaughter. No, you don't. We'll see what the law says about that. Dolores turned, walked back to her car. Before getting in, she looked back at Kendra. You're weak too, just like your kid. That's why she's broken. The words should have hurt, would have maybe a month ago, but Kendra felt nothing except a cold, clear certainty. She went inside, locked the door, picked up her phone. Found a family lawyer's number she'd saved in her contacts 2 days ago. Called it. The lawyer's name was Patricia Chin, 50s, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for winning difficult custody cases. They met in her office 3 days later. Kendra brought copies of everything: medical records, therapy reports, text messages, her own detailed documentation. Patricia read through it all methodically, making occasional notes on a yellow legal pad. "This is thorough," she said finally. "I'm a nurse. Documentation is part of the job." "Good instinct." Patricia set down her pen, looked at Kendra directly. "What's your goal here?" "Dolores threatened to pursue grandparent visitation. I want to prevent that." "Do you want to file criminal charges?" Kendra hadn't considered that. "Can I?" "Possibly. This could qualify as child endangerment. The outcome caused lasting harm, the action was intentional if misguided, and there was clear disregard for safety." Patricia tapped the medical records. "The conversion disorder diagnosis is key. This isn't just emotional distress, it's quantifiable injury. Will it work?" "In Arkansas, maybe. Depends on the prosecutor, the judge, public opinion. But it's worth pursuing." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "I have to ask, where's your husband in all this?" "He testified for his mother at the grandparent visitation hearing." Patricia's eyebrows rose. "He did. Said the incident was blown out of proportion. That Macy would recover with time. That I was being vindictive." "Are you? Being vindictive?" Kendra thought about that. Thought about rage and revenge and protection. "I'm being a mother." "Good answer." Patricia made more notes. "I'll file a motion to dismiss the grandparent visitation petition and simultaneously alert the DA's office to potential criminal charges. Be prepared, this is going to get ugly. It's already ugly. It's going to get worse." Patricia was right. The hearing for grandparent visitation was scheduled for mid-January. Kendra walked into the courthouse with Patricia beside her, Macy at home with a trusted friend from work. Wade sat on the opposite side of the gallery, next to Dolores and her lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who probably charged 3 times Patricia's rate. They didn't make eye contact. The judge was a woman in her 60s, Judge Martha Williams, who'd been on the bench for 20 years. Kendra had done her research. Judge Williams was fair but strict, with a particular concern for children's welfare. Dolores's lawyer went first, painting a picture of a devoted grandmother unfairly cut off from her grandchild due to a misunderstanding. "My client has been a constant presence in Macy Holt's life since birth," he said smoothly. "She's provided childcare, emotional support, and familial connection. The incident in question was an error in judgment, certainly, but not malicious. Mrs. Holt deeply regrets the outcome and simply wants the opportunity to maintain her relationship with her granddaughter." Patricia stood when it was her turn, placed the medical records on the podium. "This isn't about a relationship," she said. "It's about safety. Mrs. Dolores Holt hired a stranger, gave him explicit instructions to terrify her granddaughter, and then laughed while the child experienced a severe panic response. The result wasn't hurt feelings or temporary distress. The result was conversion disorder, a recognized psychological condition where the brain shuts down function to protect itself from trauma." She gestured to the records. "Macy Holt cannot speak. She hasn't spoken in 4 weeks. 3 specialists have confirmed that while the vocal cords are healing, the psychological damage may be permanent. This is not a misunderstanding. This is quantifiable, lasting harm caused by deliberate action." Patricia paused, let that sink in. Grandparent visitation exists to preserve beneficial relationships. But there's no benefit here, only risk. Mrs. Dolores Holt has shown she cannot be trusted with this child's safety. She has shown she values control over welfare. And most importantly, she has shown zero acknowledgement that her actions were wrong. She wants access, but she hasn't earned it. The judge listened impassively, took notes, asked questions of both sides. Then she called Wade to testify. He took the stand, awkward in a suit he rarely wore, swore the oath, looked at Dolores, not at Kendra. "Mr. Holt, You were present during the incident in question, the judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. Can you describe what happened? Wade shifted in his seat. My mother hired someone to dress up as the Grinch. It was supposed to be a joke, like a prank. But Macy got really scared. How scared? She screamed a lot. Couldn't stop. His voice dropped. It was bad. Worse than I expected. Did you intervene? Wade hesitated. Not fast enough. I should have stopped it sooner. Why didn't you? I don't know. I froze, I guess. And then Kendra came home and ended it. Your mother was present as well. Yes. What was her reaction? Silence. Wade looked at Dolores, who stared back with an expression Kendra couldn't read from her seat. Mr. Holt, the judge prompted. She thought it was funny at first. Then, when Kendra got upset, she got defensive. Has your mother expressed remorse since? She feels bad about how things turned out. That's not what I asked. Has she expressed remorse for her actions, specifically? Wade struggled with that. She thinks, she says, she was trying to help. Teach Macy to be tougher. By terrorizing her? I don't think she saw it that way. The judge made a note. And your opinion, Mr. Holt? Do you believe your mother should have visitation with your daughter? Kendra watched him. Saw the war happening behind his eyes. Loyalty to family versus acknowledgement of harm. Love for his mother versus responsibility for his child. I think, Wade said slowly, that Macy needs time to heal, and that seeing my mother right now would make that harder. Relief crashed through Kendra, so suddenly her eyes stung. Dolores stood up. That's because Kendra's poisoning you against me. Mrs. Holt, sit down, the judge said sharply. Dolores sat, but her expression had gone hard and cold. The judge called a recess, returned an hour later with her decision. I've reviewed the medical records and testimony carefully, Judge Williams said. While I appreciate Mrs. Dolores Holt's desire to maintain contact with her granddaughter, I cannot in good conscience order visitation when the evidence clearly shows her actions caused significant and ongoing harm to the child. She looked directly at Dolores. Mrs. Holt, what you did was not a prank. It was not a teaching moment. It was traumatic, and the consequences have been severe. Until Macy Holt's medical team certifies that she's psychologically ready for contact, and until you demonstrate genuine understanding of why your actions were harmful, visitation is denied. Dolores's lawyer immediately started objecting, but the judge cut him off. Furthermore, I'm forwarding this case to the district attorney's office for review of potential criminal charges. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Kendra felt Patricia's hand on her shoulder, steadying. Across the aisle, Dolores stared at her with naked hatred. The district attorney was a practical woman named Allison Reed, mid-40s, with a tired competence that reminded Kendra of her favorite ER attending. I'll be honest, Reed said at their meeting. Child endangerment cases are hard to prosecute when there's no physical injury. But you've got something most cases don't. Documented permanent damage with a clear causal link. So you'll file charges? Kendra asked. I'll review everything and make a decision. Reed opened the file, scanned the contents. The problem is proving intent to harm versus intent to scare. Your mother-in-law will argue she meant no lasting damage, just wanted to teach a lesson. She hired someone, gave specific instructions, laughed during the incident. I know, and that helps. But juries are unpredictable, especially in cases involving grandparents and family conflict. Reed looked up. How's your daughter doing? Still can't speak. She's adapted, uses a tablet, writes things down. But the therapist says she's internalized trauma that might take years to process. Years. If we're lucky. Reed, close the file. Let me talk to my team. We'll look at this from every angle. If we file charges, we need to be confident we can win. Otherwise, it's just more trauma for everyone. Kendra wanted to argue, to push, to demand justice right now, but she understood the calculation. Better to wait and be certain than to rush and fail. "Thank you," she said instead. "Don't thank me yet. I haven't done anything." But 3 weeks later, Reed called. "We're filing. Reckless endangerment of a child, contributing to the delinquency and psychological injury of a minor. Your mother-in-law will be arrested." Kendra sat down hard in her kitchen chair. "When?" "Tomorrow morning. She'll be arraigned, probably released on bond. Trial's months away, but we're moving forward." After the call ended, Kendra sat in the quiet kitchen and felt the weight of what she'd set in motion. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was the legal system, the power of the state, criminal charges that could result in jail time. Dolores had brought this on herself. But knowing that didn't make it feel less heavy. Kendra filed for divorce the same week Dolores was arrested. She did it quietly, practically, like making a grocery list or scheduling a doctor's appointment. Patricia handled the paperwork with the same thorough competence she'd shown in the grandparent case. "Are you sure?" Patricia asked, not discouraging, just checking. "Yes." He testified against his mother. That counts for something. It counts for doing the minimum required by decency. Kendra signed her name on the petition, the pen scratching across expensive legal paper. It doesn't count for being a partner or a father. Wade got served at work. Called Kendra from his truck, voice tight. "Divorce papers? Really? Really? Because of my mother?" "Because of you, Wade. Because when your daughter needed you to protect her, you froze. Because you value your mother's approval more than our child's safety. Because I'm done pretending this marriage is something it isn't. We can fix this." "No, we can't." She hung up, blocked his number, felt nothing except a vague relief that the pretending was over. The custody arrangement was straightforward. Full custody to Kendra, supervised visitation for Wade until the therapist cleared him for unsupervised contact. Wade didn't fight it. Couldn't fight it, really, given the circumstances. He moved back to Dolores's house, which felt appropriate. Let them comfort each other. Kendra and Macy stayed in the house they'd made home. Slowly, quietly, they began rebuilding. Dolores's trial was scheduled for April. By then, Macy still hadn't spoken. The speech therapist reported marginal progress. She could make sounds now, hum, occasionally produce a syllable, but coherent speech remained inaccessible. The body can, the therapist explained, but the mind won't. It's like a locked door. We're working on finding the key. Kendra brought Macy to therapy 3 times a week, sat in waiting rooms with other parents whose children carried invisible wounds. She learned the language of trauma, triggers and coping mechanisms, grounding techniques and safe spaces. She learned that healing wasn't linear. Some days Macy seemed better, playing with friends using her tablet, laughing at cartoons. Other days, she woke up crying, pointing at her throat with desperate frustration, mourning the voice she couldn't find. Wade called sometimes from his mother's phone since Kendra had blocked his number. She let it go to voicemail, deleted the messages without listening. Patricia kept her updated on the trial preparations. Reed's building a solid case. Medical testimony, psychiatric evaluations. The man who wore the costume is cooperating. Terry Bullock. Right. He's willing to testify about exactly what Dolores told him to do. That helps establish intent. Will she go to jail? If convicted? Probably. First offense, but the harm is severe. Likely looking at a year, maybe less with good behavior. A year. It seemed both too much and not enough. The trial itself was swift and brutal. Kendra sat in the gallery, watching Dolores at the defense table. Her former mother-in-law had lost weight, looked older, dressed in conservative colors meant to project respectability. The prosecution called witnesses methodically. The ER doctor who'd first treated Macy, the speech therapist, the psychiatric evaluator who diagnosed conversion disorder, Terry Bullock, who explained in embarrassed detail what Dolores had told him. She said the girl was naughty, he testified, that I should scare her, tell her I was taking her away, make it convincing. Did she tell you to stop when the child became distressed? Reed asked. No, ma'am. She laughed and told me to keep going. The defense tried to discredit him. Wasn't he just covering for his own poor judgment? Wasn't he trying to shift blame? But his testimony matched Kendra's, matched Wade's statement, matched the evidence. Wade testified again, reluctantly, confirmed his mother's laughter, confirmed his own failure to intervene. The defense called character witnesses, people who'd known Dolores for years, who described her as devoted, caring, perhaps misguided but never malicious. Dolores herself took the stand. I thought it would be like when my son was young, she said, voice quavering slightly. We did pranks like that all the time. He turned out fine. Did those pranks result in lasting harm? Reed asked on cross-examination. No, but did they cause medical intervention? No. Did they result in permanent disability? Dolores's jaw tightened. It's not permanent. She's being dramatic. Mrs. Holt, your granddaughter hasn't spoken in 4 months. 3 medical professionals have testified that the damage may be permanent. Who exactly is being dramatic? No answer. When Macy was screaming, terrified, unable to breathe properly from panic, what did you do? I thought she would stop. That's not what I asked. What did you do? Silence stretched. The courtroom waited. I laughed, Dolores admitted finally. I thought she was overreacting. A 7-year-old child was having a medical emergency, and you laughed. I didn't know it was that bad. But you didn't check, didn't stop the man you'd hired, didn't comfort her. You laughed. Reed let that hang. No further questions. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on both counts. Sentencing was set for 2 weeks later. Kendra didn't attend sentencing. Couldn't bring herself to sit in that courtroom again, to watch the legal system weigh harm against punishment and find some middle ground that satisfied no one. Patricia called after. 1 year in county jail, mandatory counseling, probation after release. That's it. That's the law. First offense, nonviolent crime, defendant showed remorse. She didn't show remorse. She showed regret for consequences. The judge doesn't see the difference. Patricia's voice softened. I know it's not enough. It never is. Kendra ended the call, sat in her quiet house, and felt the hollow space where catharsis should have been. Justice had happened. Consequences had occurred. Macy still couldn't speak. Wade tried to visit twice after his mother's sentencing. Both times Kendra refused to let him in. I just want to see Macy, he said through the door. Then go through the proper channels. Follow the court order. Kendra, come on. I'm her father. Then act like it. Make an appointment with a therapist. Get cleared for supervised visitation. Follow the rules for once in your life. He left eventually. She heard his truck start, listened to it fade down the street. Macy watched from the window, face unreadable. Do you hate him? She typed on her tablet. No, Kendra said honestly. I don't hate him. I just don't forgive him. What's the difference? Hate takes energy. Forgiveness requires trust. I don't have enough of either to spare. Macy thought about that, nodded slowly. I miss my voice, she typed. I know, baby. Me too. Will it ever come back? Kendra wanted to promise yes, to guarantee healing, to make everything okay again. But she'd learned that lies, even kind ones, were just another form of harm. I don't know, she said, but we're going to keep working on it. And even if it doesn't, you're still you. Still smart and funny and brave. Your voice doesn't define you. It feels like it does. I know, but you're wrong. They sat together in the window, watching the street, not speaking because only one of them could. 6 months after the incident, Kendra put the house on the market. Too many ghosts. Too many memories of that night, of Macy's screams echoing through hallways that should have been safe. They needed a fresh start. She found a small house by a lake 2 hours north. Far enough to feel like escape. Close enough to maintain Macy's therapy schedule. The house had wide windows, old trees in the yard, a dock where ducks congregated in the mornings. Macy loved it immediately. They moved in July, packing their life into boxes and leaving behind furniture that held too much weight. Wade had visitation rights by then. Supervised, limited, awkward, but he didn't protest the move. Probably relieved to have distance. Dolores was still in jail. Would be for another 6 months. The lake house had a different quality of quiet than their old home. This silence felt peaceful rather than oppressive. Kendra planted flowers, painted walls in colors she'd always liked but Wade had rejected. Made space for herself in a way she hadn't in years. Macy explored the property with careful curiosity, still not speaking, but no longer trying desperately. She'd accepted her muteness the way children accept all permanent changes, with adaptability and pragmatism adults lack. She had friends at her new school who knew her as the girl with the tablet, who included her without pity. She'd learned sign language, become fluent enough to carry conversations. The speech therapist had followed them to the new location, optimistic about progress, but no longer promising miracles. She's adapting well, the therapist told Kendra after session. That's good. Means she's finding ways to communicate that feel safe. But she's not healing. Not really. Healing looks different for everyone. Maybe for Macy, healing means learning to live with the change rather than reversing it. That night, Kendra sat on the dock watching sunset paint the lake in shades of amber and rose. Macy joined her, bare feet dangling over the water. It's pretty here, she typed. Yeah, it is. Are you happy? The question surprised Kendra. She thought about it honestly. I'm getting there. Are you? I think so, Macy typed. Then, after a pause, thank you for protecting me. Kendra's throat tightened. Always. No matter what. Even from Dad. Even from him. Macy leaned against her mother's shoulder, tablet resting in her lap. They watched the water together as evening settled around them, the sky darkening from gold to purple to the first scattered stars. Wade sent messages sometimes. Kendra rarely answered. Once or twice, Macy responded, brief neutral updates. I'm fine. School is good. We have a lake now. He asked to visit. Kendra said no unless the therapist approved. He didn't push. A year passed, then another. Macy turned 9, still silent, but thriving in her adapted world. She'd taken up painting, creating vivid canvases that spoke what her voice couldn't. Her room was full of them, abstract colors, landscapes, sometimes faces with mouths deliberately left empty. Kendra dated occasionally, cautiously, always making it clear that Macy came first. Some men couldn't handle that. The ones who could were usually worth keeping around. She went back to nursing part-time, found satisfaction in work again now that she wasn't constantly exhausted from maintaining a failing marriage. Life continued. Not the life she'd imagined when she married Wade, had a baby, bought that first house in Arkansas, but a life nonetheless, maybe even a good one. Dolores got released from jail, moved to Missouri to live with her sister. Wade followed 6 months later, took a job in construction, sent monthly messages asking about visits. Kendra let Macy decide. Her daughter chose infrequent video calls, manageable contact that didn't require physical presence or complicated logistics. Do you want to see him in person? Kendra asked once. Macy thought for a long time before typing, maybe when I'm older, when I can decide if he deserves it. Wisdom beyond years. Kendra didn't argue. On a crisp morning in October, 3 years after the incident, Kendra sat on the porch with coffee, watching Macy sketch at the picnic table. The morning air carried the smell of fall, with smoke and dying leaves and the particular crispness that came before winter. Ducks called to each other on the lake, their voices harsh and oddly comforting. Macy looked up, met her mother's eyes, opened her mouth. Mom. The word came out hoarse, uncertain, fragile as spun glass. Kendra's coffee cup hit the porch boards, shattered. She didn't notice. Macy! My voice, Macy whispered, tears streaming down her face. It's back. Kendra crossed the distance between them, pulled her daughter into her arms, felt the small body shaking with sobs that finally had sound. Say something else, Kendra managed. I love you. Still hoarse, still uncertain but real. Present. There. They held each other on the porch while the world continued around them. The ducks, the wind, the lake moving in small waves against the shore. Later, they would call the speech therapist, schedule appointments, begin the work of strengthening what had returned. Later, they would notify the school, adjust accommodations, navigate this new old normal. But for now, Kendra just held her daughter and listened to her voice, scratchy and small, but undeniably hers, as Macy talked and talked and talked, making up for 3 years of silence. That afternoon, after Macy's voice had worn itself out again and she'd curled up for a nap, Kendra sat at her laptop. One new message from Wade. Can we talk? I want to explain some things. She stared at it for a long time, thought about all the ways someone could be sorry. All the ways sorry meant nothing without change. All the ways people justified harm by calling it love. She thought about Macy's voice, returned but scarred. About 3 years of silence that could have been prevented. About a man who'd watched his mother terrorize his daughter and done nothing. Kendra understood something clearly now that had taken years to fully grasp. Love without protection wasn't love. It was a transaction dressed in gentle words, a cage painted to look like shelter, and she would never compromise on that again. She deleted Wade's message without responding, closed her laptop, went to check on Macy, who slept peacefully in the afternoon light, lips slightly parted, finally able to dream with the certainty that she could scream if she needed to, that her mother would hear. That safety wasn't negotiable. 3 years of hard lessons, crystallized into one unshakable truth. Protection came before pride, before family loyalty, before the comfort of pretending everything was fine. Kendra had learned that truth at a terrible cost, but at least she'd learned it, and she would never, ever forget